Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a CADSource family production. In this episode, we discuss youth sports, leadership, and SwimMAC. SwimMAC Carolina is a nonprofit that offers swimming programs for people of all ages and experience levels. They provide aquatic instruction and training for nearly 10,000 people in the Charlotte region each year. Terry came by the CADSource office to record this show. His positive attitude and smile were on full display. I enjoyed our chat and know you will too. So let's get right into this episode and welcome Terry Fritch. Terry, what is it like getting thrown in the pool at age 6?
Yeah, that is my first formal experience that I can remember. I know as a young kid, our family was really big in the water in pools and splashing around. But I remember my first summer league practice where my mom was like, "Hey, you're doing this." And I had no clue, and next thing I know, I was thrown in the pool and I was asked to start swimming laps. You know, I look back at it now and I look at it and go, okay, I just got thrown in the pool. What kind of experience is that? But it absolutely has been a life-altering experience because now that I have seen where the journey has taken me, swimming has a huge influence in my life. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, you know what's funny too, my wife she tells me her dad threw her in the pool, and she's a better swimmer than I was. I was not thrown in the pool, so I was the one that went to swimming lessons, and I didn't have the best experience because I always felt, you know, it just wasn't the best experience as a kid if you're not excited about being in the pool.
Absolutely.
But here you are today, you're having kids get excited about being in the pool. How are you doing that? Like, why are you so passionate? As I talk to you right now, I wish we had this on video, this huge smile on your face, and you just want to talk about swimming all day long. Why are kids so excited when they show up at SwimMAC?
I think they're excited because of the environment that we're trying to create. I know we are known for lots of things and our successes, but it's just a big family. The coaches care about the kids care about the coaches, and we really use swimming as a vehicle to be able to provide a really great environment for the child and for the families, and we're using swimming for that. And it's just a great sport to do that. There's so many lessons out of that.
Yeah, we were talking offline a little bit before. My daughter Leah, she loves swimming because it takes her out of everything else that's going on. She can't hear her mom or dad calling her because she's so focused on her swimming, she can't look at her phone. And I think we talk about all the time with our Sportsepreneur content platform that sports, business, life in general relates, and you can bring them all together, and it's a lot of fun to do. And I see that you're doing that same thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's a great life lesson, but for kids and parents, there's stumbling blocks and there's a little bit of growing pains. But swimming is not an instantaneous sport. You don't get results right away. And I think in society, and obviously we can go on about our culture and that sort of thing, and I don't want to sound like the old man, get off my yard type of situation. I just say this, I'd say there's so many things that are so accessible to kids right this second. Swimming is a sport where it takes months, it could take years to see the results of your hard work. And swimming is a sport where you fail more than you succeed. You know, from a swimmer's perspective, their results are based on a time or a place. And you're not always going to get a best time, and you're always not going to win first place. And so through a season, if you look at it that way, there's a 90% failure rate in swimming. And so to really invest in what hard work means, what self-growth looks like, and the process, and understanding what the process looks like, that is what keeps swimmers in the sport motivating, and ultimately those bring so many life skills. And again, I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't learn those lessons, and that's what excites me about being able to have that opportunity to do that here in Charlotte and at SwimMAC with lots of swimmers.
Absolutely. So I mean, you talk about two things. You talk about culture, which we always talk about. Culture is huge. So culture's in your business, and it's in swimming in general. Swimming's got its own culture, just like anything else does.
Yeah.
When you can't just manufacture culture.
No.
It comes about over time. And when you talk to swimmers, when you talk to people that are leading great organizations, they all go to culture at some point in that process.
Yeah.
When did you realize that culture was so important? Because swimming hasn't always been like this. There weren't places when I was growing up, at least, as much as there is today. And obviously in the Carolinas is more. I'm from Western New York. It doesn't have it as much, but you have these facilities all over town and all over the states now where you can go and you swim and you're a part of that swimming culture. But then you get into those places and it truly is that atmosphere that you're looking for. How are you doing it? When did you realize, again, going back to that question, when did you realize that you make this thing right?
I would say this. I think me personally, I was a YMCA swim rat. And so from a personal standpoint, growing up through the Y, those values are there. And so I kind of grew up with those values. I think, again, from where I am as the head coach of SwimMAC, I am very fortunate of all the head coaches that were before me. And SwimMAC has a great tradition, a rich tradition that the culture was set up. So I look at my responsibility of looking at the past and the rich history of SwimMAC and honoring that, and then just building upon it. And we build upon it by, continuing to hire great coaches, great staff, and you do have to work at it. Yes, we have a great rich history, but it can go away really quick. It can deteriorate from it. So that's where I think, from my personal experiencing, building on what has been there in the past has created that success.
Yeah, well, one bad apple, right? It leads to a lot. If one kid or one family has a bad experience and puts it on Google nowadays, it can turn on you very fast.
Absolutely.
I love how you took back from your experiences at the YMCA, starting with that, and then the people that were around you. Yeah. I've done that as well in my business. You probably saw the good and the bad. Not the YMCA per se, but you saw companies, you saw leadership. You're like, if I ever get in charge, I want to be like that and not like this.
Oh,
they're going to be my
awesome
own
bosses,
ideas.
right? Everybody's had awesome bosses,
and they all work, right? I think some of the best experiences I've actually had was the bad experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you had any, like, when you were, because we see kids today, they go to camp, and the reason they don't want to go to camp, though, is because they don't want to get in the pool. Yeah. They don't want to go swimming. And that, for you as someone who's a part of the swimming world, that's the last thing you want to hear. Because once you get that fear of something, maybe it's swimming or whatever that fear might be, you don't want to get thrown at the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been probably in a fortunate position where I've never really had a traumatic experience or an experience that I was like, oh, I'm never going to do that. But I think what I would say is, through observations, through other opportunities, I am a learner. I love to learn. And so from that standpoint, I have absolutely had bosses that have made mistakes, and either whether they're not ready to lead yet or just had weaknesses that I've encountered, and I've kind of put in the back of my head and say, I don't want to be perceived as that type of manager or that type of boss. Or I've watched, and I've seen other environments where I go, man, I don't want to create that environment. And then the other part of it, in anything, yes, I deal in the swimming world. But you can find lots of best practices and put them in the swimming world. I'm a big student of Chick-fil-A, and I just kind of show up and just, how are they taking my order? What is that initial customer service? And learning from customer services. I think Chick-fil-A is a great opportunity to learn. I've I've gone to other sports. I've been on the sidelines. I have 2 kids, and I've had different experiences, from the little gym to soccer to ice skating, to watching football, and I just kind of watch the coaches. I watch the experiences, and then I take that and go, okay, this is maybe how I was treated as a parent. How is our organization treating other parents? Am I getting the same type of either strengths or weaknesses? And I bring that into my leadership, and try to make sure that not only am I looking from a leadership to a customer service, but if I was on the other side of the window, what would my experience be like?
That's it. No, I love how you're going out and observing the actions of simple things. You can go get a Chick-fil-A sandwich, or you can watch the whole experience unfold.
Yeah.
Sit down, sir, we'll bring that to you. Is there anything
Yeah.
else I can help you with? And it's like the
Yeah.
smile on their faces when you have it. That's it.
Yeah.
They show up and love what they do.
And in my business, we deal with 15, 16-year-old swim instructors. And so I look at it as, consistency. It's the consistency. So how are they continuing to create a consistent environment? And then what can I learn from that to deal with not only 15, 16-year-olds, but at any age?
Yeah, well, so now we're going to go back to that second thing. I mentioned culture. The other thing you said is instantaneous, and you also said the word process in there.
Yes.
And we talk about that all the time because in this day and age, it's very easy to see the end result. We can go to see the Carolina Panthers play a football game. They don't realize the work that Cam Newton, for example, puts into his craft. They can say, oh, he's just talented, he's big, and he's strong. No. You don't understand the work when the lights are off and the scoreboard's not on that they're putting in. And that's no different than an Olympic swimmer or the swimmer that's 13 years old that's been doing it since they've been 7, and what that's like. And that's also the process of becoming a 16-year-old swim instructor. It doesn't just, you don't show up one day, become the best swim instructor you can be, or you talk about great coaches and just one that pops in mind, and I'm not a New England Patriot fan with Bill Belichick. I heard a story recently that he did video work for free, and he basically gave all the credit to all the other coaches on the team. He said, this player's doing this, watch that, and go tell the coach. And they would do that, and eventually those people moved up the process. But anyway, the point is, there is a process to becoming great, whether you're the swimmer, the coach, the whatever, the leader. That's the thing that you're talking about. And the instantaneous gratifications, kids think they can show up to become a swimmer, take a few lessons, and I want to win the race. I didn't win the race, so I'm going to go do something else now. How do you deal with? I mean, obviously that's the process you're trying to get these kids to believe in. But that doesn't happen overnight either. So it's a process for you.
No, and I think it's twofold. There's a lot of trust that is needed to go through any process. You have to believe that whether it's an organization or a certain individual, that they have the ability, they have the knowledge, and they have the skill to get you to the end result. Because we all know there's going to be growing pains, there's going to be failures, and once you lose that trust, it is really hard to get it back. And again, going back to being very fortunate that we are known for being a high-level competitive organization, we kind of have some of that trust built in. Now you have to do it every day, and that's the hard part. So I think the first part of that step is an athlete or a family coming in, whether it's blowing bubbles to trying to be at a high level. Can I come in, and is my child going to be in a safe environment? Are they going to be in an environment where there's professional teaching going on, and that I'm going to get a pathway that I can trust, a process that I can trust, where even though there might be some failures, some disagreements, it's going to lead to an outcome where we can walk away, whether that's in the pool success or from a individual human being success. And we do have steps, we do have curriculums, we do have certain measurements in place that we can sit down, or we can advertise, or we can communicate and go, okay, this is the first step. This is the second step, and this what goes long term. And we kind of created over the last probably year now a motto that we want to be our organization wants to be a life cycle. Swimming is a life cycle. From parent to me blowing bubbles to actually we have adult swim lessons to adult competitive thing. And if a family lives in Charlotte for the rest of their life, they can come into our organization and know that there's a process and a positive pathway from blowing bubbles to coming back after college and doing triathlons and that sort of thing.
And you're showing that it isn't instantaneous, and this is a lifelong process.
It is.
And
but there's little
built
wins
on
along the way.
Absolutely, you can achieve things along the way.
Yes.
You've built in the process, and you've also built in accountability.
Yes.
So the families, the student needs to keep showing up.
Yeah.
The coaches and the leadership of those coaches, they need to track the process and the successes when the successes are there.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about swimming, and we're talking about like this lifelong journey of swimming. People could think like, well, what they're going to talk about is only swim.
Yeah.
Cancel all your other subscriptions, all your other sports, and don't think about anything else but swimming. But I don't think that's how you
SwimMAC.
think. At SwimMAC, right? That's right.
Kidding.
So of course, if you're going to swim, go to SwimMAC. But youth sports
Yes.
is a huge topic right now.
Yes.
Growing up in Buffalo, New York, a lot of my friends played hockey. And they were always busy playing hockey in our high school. In there's ice rinks, but you have to find ice time. In Carolina, it's a little bit different, but anywhere, no matter where you live, if you play hockey, the cost to play hockey is thousands of dollars. I met a family recently, and they're in every major city every single weekend. The kid misses school oftentimes because he's playing hockey. It's spending so much money. The same thing, soccer, same thing, basketball, probably, and swimming, just the same.
Yeah.
How do we handle what's going on with youth sports today? Because there's great training. I was just at the fields last night. My son's a soccer goalie, so he does soccer goalie training, then he does soccer training, but he plays other sports too.
Yes.
And I was like, don't just play soccer all the time. Go play basketball, play this, play that. How do you look at it from someone who's so ingrained with youth sports?
Yeah, youth sports has become such a huge business, and it has started narrowing to kids needing to, at an earlier age, decide on a specific sport. And I think from my perspective, and again from my past experiences, being a total athlete and having opportunities to play multiple sports when it is time to choose and it's that right time, it does help. It does absolutely help. There are things that you get out of football, gymnastics, other sports that helps you in soccer or in vice versa. I just think the biggest thing is that we can get carried away, and I'm a parent, we can get carried away with seeing other families invest so much into a particular sport, into their child, and go, oh, they must be doing it the right way. I got to catch up with this kid, or I got to catch up with this family, so my son has enough playing time, right? It kind of almost gears towards playing time. I need to get my kid on the field, or I need to get my kid in this environment, so when it comes to game time, I can get them as much playing time to be successful, to be aware of. Coaches can see that they have skills and invest. And man, you just start going down a really hard rabbit hole that can lead to more failures than successes. And that's everything from as a family. Why are you investing in that kid and in that sport? Are you doing it to as a long-term goal of going to college and getting scholarships and getting recognition, or is it your child loves this sport, I love my child, so I'm going to invest in them because I'm looking at their health, and I'm looking at their welfare, I'm looking at their business, or at their happiness. And you have to really, as a parent, really think about that. Am I really investing for the right reasons? And you gotta have that honest talk. And I think too many times where we are sitting in the sidelines or on the bleachers, we're talking to parents, and you're hearing how much they're investing and how much they're excited and how motivated that they are with little Johnny or little Sally, and you start doubting yourself. Am I really giving the best opportunity for my kid? And I just think you'll know when it's right. You know when it's right. And giving them every opportunity to find different sports and different opportunities and let them gravitate to what they do best. You usually, as a parent, know your kid the best. And you can't doubt yourself at times, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and you touched on something earlier. We don't have to get into that because it does go into today's culture. Because you go to Facebook and you might have friends and families, and they're posting pictures of their kids with their first or 10th place trophy of what they won. You're like, well, maybe my kid should be doing that.
Yeah.
And that is to today's culture. So that's people are dealing with that internally, and we won't pretend to try to get into that psyche. Maybe we'll get a psychologist on here. We can get into that another time. Yeah. But you talked about two things. There's the why, and what does the kid want?
Yeah.
So I always do check-ins. So as we're going to soccer practice, how you do? You like it? It's still good? Because if not, that's okay too. Yeah. This is not for me. This is for you. Yeah. And there's certainly parents, and I'm not judging anybody. They live through other, you hear about like Texas football state championships. Like it was like, well, the father's still living, and there's TV shows, Friday Night Lights, there's TV shows about just that back in the days, and those are great shows to watch. But it's true. Yeah, it's very true. It's also the why. Why are you here? We talk about that in business all the time. Like, why do you do what you do? And do you show up every day, and are you excited about being here? Because if you're not, either get excited about it, and we talk about this, or do something about it. Yeah. And that's what we have to do with our kids too, I think, and that's what you're doing, obviously, and ask, because you would rather, I assume, a family come to you and say, little Johnny's just not into it, and that's okay, because now you decided. Now Johnny wants to go study, he wants to travel, he wants to play baseball, like whatever that is, that's great. It's what's best for them and the family is what's best for you as well, because if you're someone who's unhappy, that's not good for anybody.
No, and I think one of the things that we try to do from a competitive team standpoint is also tell a prospective family what we're not, just as much as what we are. Because we do feel that it's very important that family values connect with our values. You're always going to have a rub if their family values don't match with the organizational values. We've just learned that it's never worked. And I think any sport, you have opportunities for your child to learn life lessons. Swimming is not the only sport where you can find life lessons. You can find it in football, soccer, any real sport. It's just how does that niche work within the sport that you're looking at, and we really talk about investing in the whole child, not just the athlete. And if there is a family that is wanting to come to SwimMAC just to be a better swimmer, and their goal is to be the best 11-year-old, to be the best 12-year-old, to be the best 13-year-old, our program could absolutely help with that, but our policies and our procedures are going to be against what their values are, and we always run into conflict when that happens. We are also very proud of being #1 in the country with what we call a program. It's called Scholastic All-American. USA Swimming has a national program that's Scholastic All-American, and basically that takes grades and swimming, puts them together, and then you're ranked based on that. And from a grade standpoint, it's for ninth graders, ninth high schoolers, and it's for swimmers that have a 3.5 grade point average and above. And then there's a in the pool standard, they have to be this fast. And this year we had 47 swimmers make that list, and that was #1 in the country, and the second place team had 33, 35. So we really point to that as we're investing in the whole athlete, not just a swimmer.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, you're being honest with everybody that's there. And if it's not for everybody, you couldn't possibly take there's too many people in Charlotte, first of all. It's just crazy here. Absolutely. Which is a great thing. Yes. But it's also the thing that, hey, we can't take everybody. Yeah. It's just not going to be a fit, and then you would recommend what else they should get.
Yeah, and we are a very large program. One of the pools that we swim out of, just the competitive team, has 400 swimmers. So those group sizes look like 25 to 30 kids in a group. And we do have, again, when you kind of go back to the processes, we do have procedures where we have a healthy swimmer to lane ratio, a healthy coach to swimmer ratio, that we create a learning environment for whatever age that we feel like is going to create success. But saying that, it's just like school systems, right? Some families, or I would say even some students, don't function well in a class size of 28 to 30 kids. They rather function in a class size that has 5 or 7 kids. And then there's some students that's too small and they like to be around more people. So there's different learning environments for every kid as well, and you have to figure out that in any situation, in any sport.
Absolutely. And going back on one thing, the baseball playoffs are going on right now. Clayton Kershaw, pitcher for the Dodgers,
absolutely.
He's a big advocate for not specializing in sports.
Yeah.
And he talks about, if you're the point guard for the basketball team, go play shortstop. For the baseball team, go swim, go do this, go do that. He's like, it's like, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And we were assuming, like, well, I want to be Clayton Kershaw, so that means I got to just throw my arm out by the time I'm 13 years old.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing to do. Swimming, I'm assuming if you do too much of one thing, there's a lot of injuries that can come of it.
Absolutely. I think so. USA Swimming does a really good job in watching the pathways of their Olympians and kind of going back and looking at data. And it is shown that, swimmers under 12 and under swimmers that have been nationally ranked don't make the Olympic team.
Wow.
There's very little. What happens is usually around that 12 age, around that 12-year-old and beyond, is where we get most of our Olympians from. So to be the best 10 and under and to have that statistic shown is really helpful for our sport in that sense. So it is, and to your question about the physicality of swimming, it is a repetition sport. You are doing repetition, hours, days, months, and so to the ability again to have a process where 8 and unders are only practicing this amount of time, this many days. 10 and unders are only going to practice this amount of time, this amount of days, all the way through up. Again, that's where that process and that pathway goes, where we sometimes maybe too much control how much a swimmer or a kid is in the water, because we understand the journey. A swimmer could be 12 in any sport.
Yeah.
You could be in it for 10 to 12 years. What is going to make that different at age 10? How is that sport going to be different at age 12, at age 14, at age 18? And we really look at that. We want them to have new experiences all the way through their swimming career, because swimming's pretty boring. You look at a black line, you're in the pool, and the positives of what you were talking about with your daughter, and you don't hear, you kind of tune out.
Yeah.
The other part of that is, if you're doing that for 10 years, it can be very monotonous.
Lonely,
you know what? There's four strokes. You either do fly, back, breast free, and you go from one end to the other end, right? And then you're looking at a black line or a pretty boring ceiling kind of thing. So you have to understand that you have to set little opportunities for experiences that they go, wow, I haven't experienced that in swimming yet. This is awesome. And it kind of motivates them to get to the next level, and then to the next level, and kind of go through that. And then the injury part of it too. To kind of control how much they do, when they do it, builds them. From a pre-puberty standpoint, their bodies are what I would call in jeopardy for injuries, because their joints haven't grown in, their muscles aren't matching their bodies sometime, and you do have to be careful about that.
Well, I mean, you're seeing it in all sports. Women's soccer, girls soccer, they've had tons of injuries with it, head injuries.
ACLs, right? We
injuries.
see it ACL. And to your point, specific, and we see this with pros now. I know a trainer that trains pros, and at some point the shift went from all around training to specific, either football or soccer type of skills, that has created a weakness in their bodies where ACLs go pretty quickly and certain things go pretty quickly because now they're only training to specific sport skills and not general body, stability.
Yeah. Well, it used to be like the 4-letter athlete. Now that's not a thing
Oh,
anymore.
no,
There's a big school, and he's a basketball player. He's a point guard for the basketball team, and he's also, I believe, he's a soccer goalie. And this is like the number one team in the state for a while. I think they might still be, or at least at the top.
Yeah.
The basketball coach said you have to pick.
Yeah.
You can't do both.
Yeah.
Like you're literally either off of our team or you're off of the soccer team.
Yeah.
And he chose basketball,
Yeah.
and that's I get it. And then so I don't know. There's so many different things because the coach is under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Like you see in professional sports and college sports, it's like, well, you haven't had any success, so after 3 years you're fired.
Yeah.
Growing up, these coaches were there 10, 20, sometimes too long. And
Yeah.
They become the bad guy.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen too. But if they didn't have success, so it's like we have to win at all costs, no matter what it takes, we're going to win. So that means put everything else aside. You're going to focus all of your time and effort into this. And it's kind of gotten away from, it is about winning, no doubt about it. But at the same time, where's the development of that athlete, the development of that person? I'm sure you've witnessed that over the years. You're talking about USA, swimming, and there's amazing data out there, and it seems to be they're doing an amazing job. Anytime you turn on, they're competing and they're having success. I don't know what the future of USA swimming looks like, but I'm sure you would say it's promising. But it has come down to so much about winning number one, and that's it, and everything else is pushed to the side.
Yeah, and you can't lose sight that we're a competitive program. Like part of our organization, I should say, is a competitive program, and that does that there is goals to be the best in the country and to show up and have the best swimmers and athletes there and perform. I just think that we have found ways of being able to do both, at least in our world, and that we can still think about the kid and the family dynamics and still get the best out of them and do it in a manner where it's not an all or nothing situation.
Yeah, I can imagine that's attractive to a lot of people because you can still win. So it is about winning, but you can also grow in other areas.
Well, and you got to look at it too. And swimming is a sport where there's only one gold medal. There's only one silver medal, one bronze, right?
Yeah.
So if there's 200 swimmers competing to get one gold, one silver, one bronze, that means 197 swimmers. And if you view that as a failure, that is really difficult, and that turns swimming into a short-term sport, not a long-term sport. So then, what measurements do you put in for self-growth benchmarks to say, hey, I am competing at a high level, I am a high-level athlete, and it shows because of X,
well, you
Y,
can
Z.
have your own growth. And golf's a great sport for that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I might not win the golf tournament. So someone could be a 20 handicap and they could be playing with a scratch golfer.
Yeah.
But if they shot their best round, but the other guy's still beating by 20 strokes, does it matter? Because you're kind of just, are you growing in your game? Are you happy with where you're going? Are you putting in the effort that you could put in? Obviously, you can do the same thing with swimming. To do all of what you're doing, to compete at a high level, to build the family of SwimMAC, and to do all these things, you need an incredible staff. And the one thing I noticed is when you go to your website, you have a long list of staff members.
Yes.
And everyone's smiling the picture, everyone looks happy, and you hear great things, and the reviews on Google are incredible about SwimMAC, and I'm sure you've seen that. How do you keep a staff, when you mentioned 16-year-olds, and they're growing, and they're going off and doing new things and finding new interests, how do you keep an engaged staff, and how do you, because that truly is, that's who everyone sees. They might not, I'm sure they see you, but they see their coach every day.
Absolutely.
And if they're not in a good spot, then that's not good for the families that are coming here to SwimMAC.
Yeah, and different parts of our organization needs different different staff. We have a thriving swim lesson program, like we were talking about, from 2-3-year-olds all the way up, and they need a different skill level and a different type of customer service and a different type of experience and background. And yes, we do have young instructors all the way to older instructors, and the goal for us is to have instructors that, we know could be possibly a kid's first experience in the water. So we want that to be the most positive experience at all. So we look for swim instructors that want to create a really good first impression. We want them smiling, we want them engaging, we want them to have a heart of a teacher. We want them to do that because we know that's going to be their first experience. Then from our competitive team, you then have to switch to staff that absolutely have a heart of a teacher, but there are specific things that we need from them, whether that's experience, whether that's skill level, knowledge, maturity, and a skill set that can be a coach, but also has to do admin work, that also has to be out there and be somewhat a salesman and communicate, and a great communicator. And so from that point, that looks like a little differently. And again, from our organization, we have different values that I believe sets us apart, and a different vision. And so then going out and trying to hire those people, we need to have them have that type of heart, have that type of understanding. And then lastly, we do coach kids from 6 to 18. Where do they fit? Where's that sweet spot of them coaching 11, 12-year-olds or 13, 14-year-olds? We need to make sure they're on the right seat and on the bus, they're on the right seat, and that they have the same type of values and experiences that we want to create at SwimMAC.
Well, it's easy when because we talked about at the beginning, you create the culture.
Yeah.
So once you set the culture and you bring people in there, if people aren't liking what they've seen, then they can leave, right?
Correct,
And,
yes.
and so you've picked the culture. When people choose to come there, they know what they're getting themselves into,
Yeah.
because it's already been created.
Yes.
So the people that are coming are probably going to stay for the most part because they knew exactly what to expect, and you set the expectation.
Yeah.
A lot of companies, a lot of businesses, they don't set the expectation properly. Not that they're lying to them, but they put this something off, whatever that is, that's
Yeah.
not the way it is when they get there. Like,
Yeah.
this is not what I signed up for. In our business, for example, we've had people come in here and say, this is what it's going to be like. This is the way, and if you don't like the way that is, then we would tell you not to come work here.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against you, and there's a lot of different companies we can refer you to, but you have to fit into what we're talking about, or you're not going to be happy. The last thing I want is someone to come here and 6 months later say, I don't like what I see. Well, we talked about it, so we were upfront about everything, and it sounds like you're doing exactly that with a significant size staff that is forward facing to all of your entire community that's coming into SwimMAC.
Yeah, and we're not great at this yet, and we're continuing to work on investing into the staff like we would with our families and kids. And I say that in the sense of there are different types of coaches, and I would assume this is in every sport, where when their motivation to come to SwimMAC could be 2 or 3 different things. One is, I want to be part of SwimMAC, and I want to be here for as long as possible, and I want to grow, and I want opportunities for self-growth and to climb up that ladder at SwimMAC. Then there's coaches that come in and say, hey, I want this to be a mid-range type of coaching experience for me, where I may want to be here for 3 to 5 years. I want to get the most out of it, get some experience, and then try to be a head coach at another team. And we realize that too, and we want to help them. I mean, we understand not everybody's going to stay at SwimMAC forever. And for coaches that want to come in and get the best out of SwimMAC to help elevate them to coach and be a head coach somewhere else, that's awesome, because now hopefully we've influenced another coach in a positive way to coach 200 more other kids the way we feel like it should happen, right? And then we have short-term coaches where they're maybe coming out of college, and they're still trying to figure out what is their niche, and they might have been former swimmers, former teachers, and they're going, okay, I'm going to do this because I love it, but this may not be my career yet. This may, and that's great too. And as long as the right seat syncs with their motivations and our goals, that's when you kind of get the harmony. What happens is that if you try to put a square peg in a round hole, whether it's either their side or our side, I've been burned too many times with that as well, and it's not good for either one.
You forced it.
Yeah, you force it, and it hurts the staff, it hurts the organization, and it hurts the swimmers.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to continue to work on creating a hiring process, an evaluation process that really tries to go, okay, this coach is a circle, let's make sure we fit them in a circle. Or we invest in their growth and go, we see this as a weakness, and if this is their career, let's invest in this weakness so they don't have limitations and their ceiling is only here. That means they may be leaving the organization sooner or later, and maybe we don't want that yet.
Yeah.
And so we have to look from that, from our coaches, our directors that are in charge of programming, even to our swim instructors.
Yeah.
Kind of how do we mold them and how do we invest in them, they invest in us, and hopefully it turns into a win-win situation.
Yeah, well,
and we're still working through that.
And that's, you just said it there at the end. I mean, that's going back to what you said about being a constant learner.
Yeah.
You're always figuring out,
Yeah.
it's humble leadership, really. 'Cause
Yeah.
You're saying, well, we're not perfect at everything.
Oh, no.
You get on here and
No,
say, hey, we're the
no.
best at everything that we absolutely do. But
Not
it's,
even close.
it's being very humble. And you didn't say this word, but it's refining.
Yes.
You have a process.
That's a great
You're
word.
building this process, and you're constantly going to refine it.
Yes.
Hey, we missed something here, so let's refine that, or let's scrap it and change it, or whatever that has to be done there. I'm fascinated by it because I see what you're doing, and you have a lot going on easily, right? There's a lot happening, and you have an incredible positive attitude towards all of it.
Yeah.
And it's just a growth, and it's something that you're going through. So
Yeah.
we love talking to business owners and managers and people like yourself to lead, that are leading organizations, and especially in our community.
Yeah.
And that are helping family. Well, I have 3 kids myself, so I understand what that's like and the pressure you're under to perform every
Yeah.
single day. You can't have a day off at SwimMAC.
No,
I mean,
no,
it's gonna happen,
yeah.
but you can't turn people away, if you can help it. So
No, and I appreciate the time here, and I've enjoyed this conversation, and I am passionate. I'm passionate about 2 things. I'm passionate about the sport of swimming, and I'm passionate about people and family. And SwimMAC, again, I had started at SwimMAC in 2001, and coming from a Y environment that does both in lots of areas, Charlotte's my home. Mac was a great vehicle and a great environment to help me explore and grow into my passions of both, and that's why it works.
Yeah.
And so it's been great so far. Great ride.
that's awesome. What I want to do now is hit you with some quick questions, some
All right.
quick answers. We're gonna get going. So I gotta
Okay.
know, you're at SwimMAC probably a lot during the week.
Uh-huh.
How many days of the week are you in the water?
0.
0.
I have retired the Speedo, which is a good thing. There's no need for me wearing a Speedo. I found opportunities to continue to be in the athletic world by running, by other working out and that sort of stuff. I love being around the water, but from a swimming perspective, I've enjoyed other activities, and that's
Okay.
I'll work through that.
There you go. To stay in the swimming world, we touched on this a little bit, but the future, if you could sum it up quickly, the future of USA Swimming, in your opinion?
Oh, it is still leading youth sports from an organizational structure part. We can't escape some of the negative things, whether it's coaches and athletes, relationships, and that sort of stuff, and every sport has it. But I think USA Swimming has had its own issues, but they have been the most active in trying to keep kids safe and keeping coaches aware of not getting themselves in a bad situation, as well as they are a good resource for coaching and again having a model that creates long-term pathways for swimmers to grow through a sport in a healthy manner.
Yeah, kind of like SwimMACs do in their own environment.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
get it. So you're a constant learner. You talk about Chick-fil-A. I'm assuming you read books or you read something.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
If you were for someone in leadership position, do you have I'm sure you have many books, but if you were to pick one book that you would recommend, do you have one on top that comes to mind?
One of my first books that influenced me the most was called The Fred Factor, and I can't remember who wrote it at this point in time. I know he's written
Yeah.
he's written a lot of books. It's a simple book, but it was a powerful message to me in the sense of two things. One, at the time I wasn't in leadership. And it was a powerful message of, even though you're not in a leadership position, you have the ability to influence customers and influence your organization from any level. And so that just really kind of opened the window to then going down, the leadership trail, going, you know what, I can find little opportunities. And then that kind of led to other books. John Wooden's, from an athletic standpoint, John Wooden's Pyramid of Success and his books are just great in that sense too. And so I take little bits from other, but I would say those were the two that I would say influence.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
That started the ball rolling.
Social media. I know SwimMAC is involved. I'm not sure if do you get involved in social media at all from a business standpoint, personally, or is it more just from the SwimMAC perspective?
I would say more from a SwimMAC perspective.
What is SwimMAC's favorite social media platform?
I would say right now it's Instagram, because Instagram does a really great job for us showing pictures, and we're telling the story through pictures.
Yep.
And I think that platform has given us that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so now I'm going to only allow you from here on out to root for one sports team or one maybe athlete. It could be, even if we're talking swimming. If you were to only pick one, what team would that be?
New York Yankees.
Okay, and you got the Yankees hat on.
I got the Yankees hat on, and anybody that
wearing
knows
it
me
proud. I mean,
understands.
the Red Sox had that Grand Slam late in their game yesterday. Makes you happy, right? Yeah.
So why the Yankees?
Yep.
One, I lived in the Northeast for a little bit. I gravitated baseball very early. And so my family was a little bit of a Yankees fan, and then just being a baseball fan. As I've grown up and watched just their tradition, their history. Again, they have you know who they are, their identity.
Yeah.
And even through the years and how the world has changed around them, you know the pinstripes, you know the identity, you know the brand, and everywhere from they have that simple no beards. They just have they have systems in place that you're going to represent us this way. And that's what.
Take it to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're competing, right?
And they
win.
And we
come
have
back
won,
next year.
We have won. We have won a few world titles.
Let's just say you've had your share. Let's
Oh no, you can always have more. Come on, go back to competing. There is never enough.
Yeah, especially losing to the Red Sox. That's just.
I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, they'll be back. Red Sox have a good team. There's a lot of talk. I don't know if they can replicate what they did this year, but maybe the Astros will get them after all. All right, and actually one last question, and we'll figure out what's the best way people get a hold of you. When was the moment you told yourself you needed to make it happen and gave yourself no excuses?
I do that every day. I really do. I am, by nature, I am a person that will I'm the person that will jump out of the helicopter and build the parachute on the way down. And so I just think my attitude's always been, you wake up, you take the day on, and no excuses. Everybody's going to have a bad day, and I'm going to make tons of mistakes. I'm not paralyzed by making mistakes. I know I'm going to make mistakes, and hopefully they're not so impactful that it hurts a lot of people. But I don't want to not make decisions or not do something because I'm afraid of making a mistake. I feel like that's just the wrong way to lead.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see the passion, the excitement. You smiled the entire time, so it's inspiring for us to see that, and we appreciate it. Terry, what's the best way people can get in touch with you and learn more about SwimMAC?
Yeah, I think to get in touch with me, my email is the best way. It's tfritch@swimmaccarolina.org. And that's the easiest. And then as far as our programming, we are here in the south side of Charlotte. We also are up in Huntersville, Concord, Cornelius area, and that is swimmaccarolina.org.
Excellent. Well, Terry, thank you so much for coming into our office, spending time with us, teaching us about leadership and swimming and all the great things that you're doing. Thank you.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Terry, it has been absolutely awesome having you on this podcast. From teaching our listeners about leadership and self-development to how you give your energy to your team and athletes, we're all better off from the time we spent with you. The perspectives from Terry on his journey are now perspectives you as the entrepreneur can use for yourself. And for that, Terry, thank you. And for anyone looking to talk to Terry about SwimMAC, we encourage you to reach out to him. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can find me on LinkedIn or contact me on Twitter and Instagram at Eric_Kaz. Thank you for listening to our CAZSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Until next time, we're out of here. This podcast exists in large part because of CAZCM, the content marketing business inside CAZSource Inc. CAZCM is excited to bring the content marketing services used at CAZSource to you. Learn more by visiting CAZCM.com. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It's a big deal to us. We hope you found value in it, and if you did, we would be incredibly grateful if you gave us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, and feel free to share it with anyone you know. More than anything, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it.